Despite Orthodox nationalists using every opportunity on the internet to shit on Turkey and getting steamed by the idea of Turkey collapsing, there's very good reason to believe that Turkey is going to dominate the second half of the century. Now, before I get there, I first have to clarify a few things with the wording and what exactly I mean. With dominating, I'm not saying Turkey is going to become a superpower like the US. However, Turkey will be more than just a regional power. It will become clearer what I'm talking about as the video continues, but for now, just keep in mind that I'm talking about Turkey being a regional power on multiple theaters. That being said, we first have to clarify why there's even reason to believe that such a thing is going to happen. After all, the internet is full of negative reports about Turkey and the Turkish economy in particular. Now, I'm not an economist, which is why there is no point of me to claim and explain what is working and what is not for the future of the country, but there are experts that can do such an assessment. There are two particular videos I would like to refer to, which are these two. Basically, the idea for the economy during the early reign of the AKP was to get foreign investments in order to fuel the construction sector, further getting more foreign investments and strengthening the economy. And this did work for a while, until foreign direct investments went down. During this period, the conversion between currencies was made severely easier. For instance, with Ziraat Bankası, I can just convert euro to lira and the other way around with a few clicks. I don't have to go anywhere, which is for example not possible with any major bank in Germany. So when foreign direct investments was going into the country, this helped strengthening the lira, but when foreign direct investments went away, the trust in lira also went away, and with it, people started converting their savings into USD rather than lira, ultimately dollarizing the economy. In short, Turkey has a problem with people trusting foreign currencies more than its own currency. I'm not going to get further into details and what recent policies are successful and which aren't, but currently the AKP is at damage control trying to get foreign direct investments back. This problem is, however, not just fueled by the trust in lira or the government or the constitution of Turkey, but by two other major issues. One, Turkey is importing more than it is exporting, which is weakening the lira. Second, Turkey has issues with energy and has to buy it from outside with USD. The second issue is already being solved with the massive investment in green energy. As of now, about half of Turkey's energy comes from renewable energy sources. This number was at less than 1% in 2009. In the next 2 decades, Turkey is most likely going to increase this number to close to 100%, being ahead of other major European nations. This will not just remove one major issue for the weak lira, but potentially allow Turkey to sell electricity at a cheap price to its neighbors, further strengthening the lira. Of course, the necessary infrastructure is required, but these are rather minor issues. The other issue was the trade balance. Ignoring the data from 2022, where imports were fueled by the war in Ukraine, shooting energy and grain prices up, there is already a trend of a stabilizing trade balance since 2011, meaning exports are increasing faster than imports. Of course, this doesn't guarantee that the trend is going to keep up, especially when shit hits the fan in and around Turkey, but policymakers are aware of this issue as well. Turkey is already becoming an energy hub for Europe with potential to become an energy hub for the Middle East as well. There are also plans with becoming a global logistical hub with a new canal, assuming it's going to be finished. And regardless of what you or I think about the canal, it will earn Turkey money with little to no maintenance and money input, relatively speaking. There is also the domestic military production, which proved itself to be a cost-effective alternative to other major arms suppliers. And worth mentioning is the ever-increasing amount of startups in Turkey, of which some already grew into hundreds of millions of dollars of big businesses like Trendyol. And let's not forget about the tourism industry, which is doing really well, taking the situations into consideration. However, the biggest reason why there is good reason to believe that Turkey is going to become a net exporter is its geopolitical situation. As of now, Turkish exports are mainly directed towards Europe and a few selective nations like Iraq. But, and this is a very big but, this is not because Europe is much more profitable, but because of political issues. Egypt is a plus 100 million people big market that is being denied access to because of the government's relations with the Muslim Brotherhood. Iran is a plus 85 million big people market that is being denied access to because the US doesn't want to reconcile with them. Ukraine is or was a plus 40 million big people market that was being denied access to because they used to be a Russian satellite state, which Turkey has access now. Libya used to be under close cooperation with France and Italy, while it's currently signing one big business deal with Turkey after the other. Algeria used to be the backyard of French foreign policy, turns out Turkey broke through there. And despite the butthurtness of Orthodox nationalists, Turkey is actually getting along really well with Balkan nations. No offense, but as an Orthodox nationalist, you should be worried about whether or not you guys can operate your own country in 50 years, considering the massive loss of manpower, but yet here we are. Turkey is making diplomatic gains in northern and eastern Africa. It will eventually reconcile with its Middle Eastern neighbors. Eastern Europe is already open to Turkey, Caucasia is getting increasingly binded to Turkey, and it's just a matter of time until Central Asia opens to Turkey. Turkey didn't reach its potential, it is yet to even start to harvest its potential. The Islamic world is a massive market that the Turkish companies have yet to truly tap into, which will not just earn Turkey stupid, it will bind the security of several nations to Turkey. I'm not talking about Turkey subjugating these nations, but about Turkey cooperating and dealing with other nations on equal footage, not only benefiting Turkey, but also the nations we speak of. Turkish military outposts are already in Europe, Africa, the Middle East, and Caucasia. This is not going to lessen but increase with Turkey becoming more and more of an alternative to traditional powers. An alliance with Egypt, for instance, would not only strengthen economic ties, but it would allow both nations to dominate the Eastern Mediterranean according to their own wishes. Iran eventually opening up would not just strengthen security in the Middle East, it could catapult, together with Egypt, the Middle East into the political center of the world, with these three nations alone having enough economic and military power to sway superpowers, which would otherwise not be possible. Central Asia eventually opening up does not only provide a treasure of resources, but a potential for a union, catapulting Turkey into the global field as an equal power, together with its other members, to superpowers. And while the potential union with other Turkic nations is a big if, the reconciliation with its Middle Eastern neighbors and the potential trade and military cooperation certainly is not. There are of course other issues that yet have to be solved. The constitution and litigation are such examples, but these issues are eventually getting solved. Turkey is going with baby steps here, but the steps are still being made. This does of course not mean that we should be fine with the progress being done so far, but it does mean that there is hope for the future. For instance, 30 years ago, there wasn't a single good Turkish university that was even worth mentioning. Currently, there are several of which are in close cooperation with other European universities. Constitutional issues such as the presidential system, freedom of speech, or the rights of LGBTQ, for example, are not issues that are impossible to solve, but rather issues that can be solved relatively fast. With the Turkish people eventually getting visa for the European Union, the Turkish passport would even become one of the strongest passports in the world. And all of this will not just make life easier for the average Turkish citizen, it will attract people from all over the world, particularly from the Islamic world. Now, of course, the opinions are different with refugees, but I'm talking about legal immigration here, the frame of which you can define the way you want to. However, matter of fact remains that machines will never replace enough humans to keep increasing the GDP, meaning the relevancy of a nation will be determined by their manpower. I will write a separate comment about this in the comment section, but just to underline the ridiculousness of such an idea, the Japanese economy is struggling for 30 years, and it's not a coincidence that the population is stagnating to decreasing since the late 1990s. If the Japanese people couldn't manage to replace the lack of manpower with machines and automation, Turkey is definitely not going to do it either. Immigration is already the lifeblood of industrial nations due to low domestic fertility rate, which is why countries like Germany are already multicultural, multi-religious, and multi-ethnical societies. This is not gonna lessen but sharpen with each passing year. So unless Turkish people start making 3 children on average per family, it's just nonsense to believe that the economy will do fine with immigration being blocked. There is one major issue I personally see that is a threat to all of this, hence the maybe in the title, and that is the lack of communication. It sounds funny and cringe, but I stand by that statement. Populists such as Erdogan or Kemal or Bahçeli can stay in power because every side claims to be the only side that wants to do good for the nation. And as such, the Turkish people are being fueled to hate each other in order to maintain this absolutely ridiculous idea. Some Kemalists are under the opinion that all conservatives want the destruction of democracy and the implementation of Sharia like in Saudi Arabia, while some from the other side believe that Kemalists want to destroy mosques and implement a fascist state oppressing its own people. Reality tells us that the majority of both sides want democracy. History tells us that it is absolutely ridiculous to even think that something like Saudi Arabia can become a thing in Turkey, especially when we consider that a much more conservative society under the Ottomans beheaded the Wahhabi leader and impaled the head publicly in Constantinople. It was the Tanzimat era starting the idea of Western democracy by conservatives in the first place. and it were the Kemalists implementing the foundation of it. It was Kemalism fueling basic rights and tearing feudal structures down, and conservatives pushing Turkey into the Western sphere of influence. Both sides basically work for the same goal, and while opinions might differ once in a while about various topics, the overall goal doesn't, which is why a common excuse to shit talk the government is by pointing out that anything positive would have happened regardless of the AKP, ultimately also admitting that they, as in Kemalists and conservatives, are ideologically not really that different. Yet here we are, the only people on this goddamn planet shit talking our ethnicity because reason. Shahzad Mehmed, a promising son of Suleiman the Magnificent, died due to lack of communication. The entire hatred and butchering between Muslims and Christians during the late Ottoman period happened because of prejudice and with it, lack of communication. Certain Arab tribes and chieftains started to revolt during World War I because the concerns of Arabs were ignored, meaning lack of communication. The greatness of Turkish leaders akin to Atatürk, Fatih Sultan Mehmed or Alparslan did not just arise from their brilliance but primarily from their ability to listen and speak to the hearts of their followers. You gotta be able to listen, understand and sympathize before you can talk to other people, and that is the greatest lesson one can take from Turkish history. Whether the Turkish youth that is going to lead this period with the greatest potential for Turkey is going to be able to do a very basic skill, talking to each other, is the greatest risk factor and something I cannot foresee. If Turkey and Egypt will not get along, then it will be bigotry causing it. If the constitution of Turkey cannot be fixed, then it will be populism causing it. If the future of the country is ruined, a civil war at the door, or the nation at threat by one of its neighbors, it will not be the fault of anyone but the Turkish people causing it. In 50 years, Turkey is standing on one of the most strategically important areas as an economic powerhouse, with a potent military that is threatened by none. It will either be the Turkish citizen leading this period into a golden age or the Turkish citizen taking it through the mud. But while most nations will have to worry about enough people, opportunities, energy and justice, I truly believe that Turkey can stand as a beacon of stability and prosperity among the chaos that will come forth. I'm not urging people to believe what I'm saying, but I am urging people to do a very basic thing. Talking. Just talking.